The webinar I just did this week with the free members showed so many golfers who don't engage their core at all, and so you'll see their rear end stick out a lot. The trick to this is this very subtle curvature of the spine that Tiger employs. And you'll see that I didn't do a very good job there drawing that line, did I? The curvature is core activation, just like you're doing a sit-up. And the reason this is so important to set up this way is that if you start with your chest popped out and your rear popped out, you're lengthening the muscles in your core, your abdominal wall. And so you actually not only not supporting your spine, but you don't have these muscles engaged to be able to move from there in the first place, that we're going to talk about more in just a moment. So you have to build up piece by piece, because what I found is it's just too big of a step for most golfers to take that goat drill and put it into action. Because if you don't use your core, there's no point of learning how to move your right arm if you don't know how to use it correctly with your core. So I'm going to walk through this stuff. Again, there's some slight differences here. Obviously, I am, in relationship to the camera, I am set up way more left than Tiger is. So that's going to change a couple different angles of the club. So when you're videoing, though, make sure that you're videoing as close to straight down the line as you can. This will make everything so much easier to dial in. So now the first key, as you're starting the takeaway, there's a couple subtle little things that you're going to see. But the main thing that we're really focusing on at first is at the end of the takeaway, that club head has got to be outside your hands. This is the most common mistake that most golfers make. And it happens when you pronate with that left arm or hinge that right wrist back, or really just not using your core to take the club back. That is what it comes down to. If you don't use your core, you will have to use your arms and hands, and that will always cause that club head to go inside. So this is your first primary checkpoint. And once you understand how to do this correctly, then everything else becomes so much simpler. But if these first few feet of club travel are off because you're not using the correct muscles in your body, then it's really kind of game over, and you do not pass go, do not click $200. And that's why I started with the putting at first, to get that feel in the right hand, to get a sense of control and really train your nervous system to pay attention to what you feel in your fingers of your right hand and what it's doing to that club face. And obviously the left hand is involved as well. When we add the left hand back on there in the putting and the chipping, you start to get a sense of how your body has to work together to control this club face. Now from here, the path that the club is on is going to be really, really simple, but there's a couple more super critical checkpoints. Most golfers' right arm is really collapsed at this point, and that right wrist is hinged a lot. The biggest checkpoint I want to give you is that right about here at 9 o'clock, that elbow, your lead elbow, is pointing close to straight down at the ground. Tiger does it perhaps better than anybody, and this helps keep the club in front of the body, in sync with the body, but also shows that you're maintaining that supination that you start out with at address, because that is going to help ensure that the club works up on plane and isn't getting wrapped around deep behind you, because that's going to change the club face angle. At the end of the day, this is all about controlling that club face. So what I've done here is moved my core to move my arms, to move my hands, to move my club, but I'm really feeling and sensing that club in both hands, more so in the right than anything else, because that's what's going to help me control the club face angle. But you'll see at this point we're pretty well matched up. Now I made a little bit longer swing than Tiger, but you'll see as we start coming down, again, camera angles are slightly different here. So now Tiger's hitting a cut in this shot on the right, and so I also am hitting a cut here just to get the release patterns to match up, as you'll see as we come down. So now I'm going to be a little bit steep because I'm trying to hit down on it, swing a little bit more left, and you'll see the club immediately starting to work left here. So you can see right here, it's just the toes just about on the ball, and then as it comes down, I'm going to work at left because I'm hitting a little bit of a cut here. At impact, we're pretty close. Obviously, Tiger's 3 or 4 inches taller than me. I have really narrow shoulders and very long arms and short legs and a long torso, and he's the opposite. He's got long legs, shorter torso, medium arms. So obviously that's going to change things a little bit. But overall, you'll see that the basic gist of things is nearly identical, and it's all built from this putting to chipping to pitching, proper setup mechanics, proper feel, core activation, proper movement of the club going back, and then it makes everything happen automatically. I can't possibly think about how to swing down. All I'm thinking about here is just hitting a cut, just swing a little bit more left and holding the release of the face off a little bit. So now here you can see the club face is still maintaining some openness here. Again, Tiger and I look pretty similar. Club's going to come out very similar spots in terms of, relationship to the body. And you can see that we're both using that right hand to hold the club face off. That's what creates this look of the right arm being straight and swinging across the body. And that's what gets us into the same position. And again, these are all things that are happening truly dynamically, happening much too fast for me to control. We both even kind of like fall over, settle back into our lead side or to the left of our body at the same time. These movement patterns, to get it this similar, are all done with just really basic fundamentals. Core activation, proper setup, engaging your core at setup, which we're going to talk about in just a moment, and using that to move the club back. You can swing like the GOAT. It's all done just by understanding these really, really critical fundamentals and getting these things dialed in just right through baby steps. One piece at a time, stacking one piece of the puzzle at a time, but it can happen really, really quickly. It only takes a couple hours of putting to get a feel of that right hand, a couple hours of chipping, a couple hours of pitching, and that's going to build into the full swing, and that's going to build into your iron swing, your driver swing, and so on. So let's talk about some more of these fundamentals that you're going to need to get your swing dialed in.
So what do you guys think? In your opinion, how close is that to the GOAT? I'm going to take a look at a couple of questions. I am going to discuss core muscles. Absolutely. Mike, awesome. Had instant results. That's killer. So what do you guys think? Does that those movement patterns seem to match up with what the GOAT is doing there? Yes or no? Nope. No wrong answers. Yes. Okay. Okay. So we're on the same page then, right? All that is learning how to move this with my belly. That's it. Once you learn how to move this with your belly, then you start to understand the golf swing and everything's going to start to make sense. So now I know the RSA guys have all bought these already. I'm going to put up a link real quick if you guys don't have one. And I'm going to explain what these are all about because it's very important. And you can, if this is blocking the screen, you can close it. But this is just off Amazon. It's the same one I bought. It's 6 pounds. I don't like to go heavier than 6 pounds for a bunch of different reasons that we'll talk about. But this is what you really need to be able to do. You need a medicine ball with handles. And you need one that's about 6 pounds for most people, because this is what's going to teach you how to start to engage your core. Because the reality is most people don't know how to do it. They can't feel their core. Their abs have gotten completely neglected because we sit all the time. It's just not part of our natural daily life anymore to need to use our core. In fact, we tend to do the opposite. And so you need to start training yourself to get this engaged again. It doesn't have to be super strong. You don't need to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, but you do need to learn how to activate it. And you need some weight to do that. The problem with the golf club is it's really light. And because it's so light, you can just fling it around all over the place with your arms. And that's what we do. And that's how we trigger the golf swing. And if you don't trigger, you don't start the swing with some core rotation or relatively a lot of core rotation. That's one thing you'll notice in Tiger's swing that's unarguable, is that even on a short swing, he always makes a big shoulder turn, but he's not turning his shoulders. He's turning his core, and that's moving his shoulders. When you start to move your shoulders, you start to run into all the problems that you guys probably have already, where the club goes inside. Like almost everybody said yes, and the club goes inside. Any movement from this lead shoulder or this lead arm or this lead hand, almost any movement will wreck the swing if you start out that way. If you start to go pushing across your body, letting this wrist roll at all, letting this arm internally rotate, the club will always go inside. And then your swing is just an instant box of compensations from there. That's the problem, because this thing is so light, it doesn't teach you that you need to engage your core. It teaches you to use your arms and hands. And so this, what it does, is it starts to make you want to use your whole body. That's why you need some weight. You don't have to have a medicine ball if you got a weight at the house or something, but this just makes it easier because I do several drills on the site. So that are already on there. The whole series is up there, up to the chipping stuff, but the core activation videos are on there because you want to learn how to use your core to create power. It's not just about having a proper takeaway or a core activated takeaway. I want power. I want to hit the ball hard. I want to be able to feel like I can hit the ball as hard as I want, and I can as long as I use my core. Then I can go after it on every shot. I don't have to feel like I've got to have kind of a smooth swing. Of course, smooth is helpful, of course. But how many of you out there feel like when you go to try to put something into it, you don't get better results? You get way worse results. I think most golfers feel that way. They feel like they can't use everything that they've got. You kind of always got to throttle back a little bit in order to be able to have, to be able to put the ball on the planet, right? Especially with the longer clubs. I mean, who wouldn't want to be able to put everything they've got into their driver? When you start doing this correctly, you can. You want to wail on a driver every now and then, you can swing as hard as you want and you will still be able to control it as long as you start moving correctly. And that's why you have to go through, most of you, I should say, will have to go through this sequence the way it's laid out. You've got to start with the putter, because with the putter, you're going to start to make little core movements. And the putter swing, as Tiger learned the game from the green back, Earl put him on the green, said putt first and then chip and then start hitting wedge shots and so on. There's just something that changes in your brain. And it happened in my case as well, that as soon as I backed down and stopped trying to match Tiger's swing at full speed and started really paying attention to the intricacy of the control that I needed to feel in my right hand, get my brain and my core and my right hand to work together to control that club face with the putter. When I started chipping, I had 10 times more control. When I started hitting wedge shots, I had 10 times more control. And it built one on top of the other. And it starts here. So how do you start to put this together? Now, there's a whole series. There's 4 videos on the site. So I'm just going to briefly walk through this. They're already there. But the gist of it is you've got to feel your belly starting to work. And you can't do this if you don't set up correctly. Like Craig was on the free webinar we did the other night. And the one thing that we both saw on almost everybody that I brought up on stage to help them out, I said, okay, just take your setup, and almost every single one looked like this. Now, what's wrong with my setup here? What do you guys see that's wrong here? What do you think is going to happen from this position? Any thoughts?